We generally over-index on the skills of success. And I think skills can be transferred to about anyone.
Sabastian Enges, he is an industry-leading mental conditioning and performance coach.
Humans will pay for excellence, and it almost doesn't matter what you're good at. If you were the best at it, there's probably a market for it.
I always tell my kids, I'm like, you want money? I'm like, oh, it sounds like you have a skill problem.
Money gives you resources to solve your problems, but in and of itself, its only value is in what it represents to you. It definitely gives you options, and so I would never downplay the importance of money. It's just...
All right, Jeremy Miner, a founder of 7 Love. Welcome to another episode of Closers Are Losers. I am here with a very special guest. Now, as you know, you're probably watching us here, you're maybe listening somewhere, and you're probably a salesperson, or you're in sales leadership or executive leadership, or maybe you're a coach or a consultant, an entrepreneur or business owner, but you're trying to get better to really move other people to your way of thinking, right? And really, as we all know, we talk about that, selling is not something you do to people for you to make money. Not something you do to people, it's something you do for people to solve their problems and get them their results. And so this next guest I'm bringing on really lives that with the company he has. So I'm going to give you a bio of this gentleman, and then I wrote down some very specific questions that I felt would really, really help you, the salesperson or the business owner or management, really start having the right way of thinking, not just skill level, but maybe reframing our thoughts and where we're coming from to get a different result. So this gentleman's name, Sabastian Enges, hopefully I pronounced that right, it's Norwegian. He is an industry-leading mental conditioning and performance coach, which is very important. So he's already worked with thousands, it's not some amateur here, he's already worked with thousands and thousands of young professionals, maybe even you watching this, in North America, successfully training and developing their skill sets, leadership skill sets, entrepreneurial skill sets. I know a lot of you watching, listening, maybe you want to start your own business one day or lead a group of people, okay? He's also been recognized for generating hundreds of millions of dollars in LTV for companies like AT&T, T-Mobile, Amazon, been featured on Yahoo Finance and Fox Business as a professional coach and consultant. He helps young professionals, many of you watching us here. Maybe you feel unfulfilled right now. Maybe you don't know which direction you should go, and he helps you really figure that out where you understand you have a clear path to actually get there. You're not just hoping and praying, all right? Sebastian, he's also got his company, Phoenix Consulting Group. I hope I pronounced that right with the F.
Sure did.
Not the P, all right?
Yep.
Sebastian, how are you, man?
I'm fantastic, Jeremy.
Yeah? Chilling like a villain over there?
I just got back. We were in Texas this last week, speaking at an event. It was all week, about 3,000 people. So yeah. I'm in recovery mode right now and laying low back in the Pacific Northwest.
I know. Have you ever done like, I think in February, I had like 6 keynotes in 1 month. Usually I only like to do 2 a month. Like literally, Probably like you get approached all the time and you're like, I'll do that one, not going to do that one. That one's on way over there, 5-hour flight. I'm going to pass on that one. Not because, as you know, I don't love doing it. It's just, it really taxes you because you don't just show up and start winging it from stage. You got to prepare the material, right? Yeah. You got to rehearse it. You got to make sure that it makes sense. It's, I'd say every keynote probably minimum takes a week, a couple of days of preparation, role playing, and then you got to fly in the day before, deliver it, fly the day out, right?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, and it is to do it right. I think does take a lot of energy. You were talking about sales earlier. I define sales as the transfer of energy. You can't give what you don't have, right? We're trying to get aligned in our thinking. Well, part of that is an energetic alignment. And so speaking is the same skill set.
Yeah.
And so you can't give what you don't have. And so for me, I lay it all out when I do it. And we did. Yeah. I spoke, I think, 5 times this last week. And it was exhausting. So I have recovery protocols when I come back. I lay low, I sleep in a lot, I take it easy, I don't work out as much. I have my Oura ring tell me when I'm recovered. So I'm in very much chill mode right now.
Yeah, it does tax you for sure. Now I want to dive in, and what I want you to do real quick is I want you to tell the audience maybe a little bit of your background before all this, right? Because highly doubt you were born out of your mother's womb with all these skills.
Nope.
Maybe it's something you had to learn. So if you could take us back and maybe tell us a little bit of your background, because that always relates to what is necessary for everybody listening to get to the next level in their life. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, that's a funny one for me. I'm in a season of life where I get to reach a lot of people and I get to impact a lot of people, but it's
Yeah.
funny the stories people create when they see you talk about money, success. They see you in a suit, which I love to wear my suits. I know it's cool in this day and age to not wear suits as a status symbol. I love my three-piece suits, but we create our stories of what we think the person must be or where they came from. And I certainly wouldn't say that I haven't grown up with certain privileges living in the United States, but my
Sure.
story is much different than I think most people think. And
Yeah.
I was born to a single mom and my brother and I. And so we, growing up, we never lived above poverty level. I
Sure.
didn't even realize that until my mom passed away in my early 20s. And we
Yeah.
got if you're the oldest son or the next of kin, the executor of the estate, essentially,
Yeah.
the government will send you your parents' social security readouts. And so I was
Sure.
able to look at her income every year, um, which was pretty emotional for me to see. Is like
Yeah.
I don't want to, we never felt lack, but money was always an issue in our family. Money was, it was the reason why we did not do something.
Right.
So my mom, being a typical stressed out single mom,
Yeah.
said no almost like gut reaction to anything was no. So I
Yeah.
learned sales really quick because I had to learn how to turn no's into yeses, right? And so I had
Yeah.
to anticipate her no, what her objection would be, what she was confused on, or where there was a lack of clarity and she didn't want to take the risk. And then I'd
Sure.
come back and I turned those no's into yeses. And I
Yeah.
started looking back at my life like, man, I learned sales at a very young
At a
age. But
very young age.
when I was 11, I went to try to get a job to help my mom as the oldest son, and was very frustrated. There was a
Mm.
lot of like looking for work signs in people's businesses, but nobody would hire me. Everywhere said, "Hey, we appreciate it, but we can't hire you."
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand until later why. At 11 years old, it's actually illegal for them to hire you, and there's child labor laws that prevent
Yeah.
that. And so I was at church one day. This older man, I don't even know who he is, and my book's on my desk in my office. He hands me this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and he
Yeah.
goes, "Why don't you read this?"
Yeah.
And so I read it, and I got a lot from it. But one of the things that really hit is it's not a lack of resources; it's a lack of resourcefulness. God
Mm.
bless capitalism. God bless America.
Yeah.
11 years old, you can't go work for somebody else, but you can run
Sure.
your own company.
Yeah.
And so I'm back in the Pacific Northwest where I live. This time of year, starting usually late July and running into September, there's blackberries everywhere. They grow
Okay.
like a weed up here, and they're
Yeah.
part of every restaurant's, blackberry cobbler, blackberry shake,
Yeah.
blackberry everything.
Yeah.
And so I started cold calling all the local restaurants and just saying, "Hey, how much are you paying a gallon?" And they were all, $50 a gallon. Said, "I'll give it to you for 48. They'll be there this afternoon, fresh off the bushes." And so I
Really?
just closed a ton of restaurants, and then I hired all my brother's friends and my friends, and we picked blackberries for a few weeks,
Yeah.
and delivered them to the restaurant. I remember
Yeah.
going in specifically to one guy's restaurant, and he says, "Tell Mr. Enges hi for me. Thank you." And not, I'm like, "Yeah, you're welcome. I am Mr. Enges." But
Yeah.
we
Right.
made an important lesson for me in that early in life, 11 years old. I made more money
Mm.
in that 6 weeks period than my
Mm.
mom did.
That's crazy.
And she worked for a dentist office. She was
Yeah.
treated well. We were treated well. The guy was great to us. I wouldn't say that she was underpaid.
Sure.
And it made me ask questions like,
Yeah.
how is it that I'm able to
Mm.
get paid based on my result and I'll make more money? The harder I work, the more money I make.
Mm.
And no matter how hard she works, she's only going to make X amount of money. And it really made me angry. I was confused, and I tried
Yeah.
talking to her about that. I'm like, "Can't you just work harder or work?" She's like, "That's not how it works.
Yeah.
I'm on a salary, which
Well,
is
you
what
get
everybody wants."
paid based on the demand in your market for your skill level, right? So
Right.
everybody gets mad at like professional athletes like LeBron James, like, "Oh, he's making $50 million a year." Well, here's the issue. LeBron has skills that 99.9999% of the population do not have, that people
Yes.
want to pay. Now, if I'm working at McDonald's and I'm a cashier's clerk, nothing wrong with that, right? Especially for a starter job, but anybody can do that job. So because anybody can do that job, there's not that demand to pay you based on your skill level because everybody has that skill.
100%. And that's capitalism in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I would offer, because I get asked a lot about what should I do, what should I be?
Mm-hmm.
I say you really could be excellent at about anything, and
Mm-hmm.
the world will reward you. No offense to LeBron James,
Yeah.
but in real world sense, putting a basketball in a hoop isn't changing lives,
Sure. Yeah.
right? I mean, maybe it is because he inspires people and he shows
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
possible, and I
Motivating.
think
Yeah.
he's a fantastic basketball player.
Yeah.
But it's putting a hoop in a ball or
Yeah.
putting a ball in a hoop,
Yeah.
right? And he makes hundreds of millions of dollars at this
Yeah.
point in his career to be able to do that, which is
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods, tiny little white ball in a tiny little white hole,
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars simply because we wanted one of the best at it.
Yeah.
Humans will pay for excellence.
Yeah.
We want to be inspired by seeing excellence, and it
Yeah.
almost doesn't matter what
Yeah.
you're good at.
It's true.
If you were the best at it, there's probably a market for it.
You're always going to get paid the most. That's what I have 5 kids. I always tell my kids, I'm like, you want money? I'm like, oh, sounds like you have a skill problem. Because you're coming to me to ask for money. Well, why do we have you teach you the skills so you can make your own money, right? That's a skill problem, not a money problem. It's a skill problem. And like you said, I always tell my kids, I'm like, hey, whatever you want to do in life, learn the skills to become the best at it. And I can assure you, let's say if you want to be an English teacher, if you become the best English teacher in the state, look, you're going to get paid the most. You're going to be able to have ideas to write books, get published, make sales from that. People are going to pay you to come in and teach maybe their school district how to be a better teacher, right? So if you're one of the best because your skill level, you're in demand. But if you're just the regular, let's say teaching, for example, because they are definitely underpaid for sure, if you're just teaching kind of like everybody else, there's really no demand to pay you the most, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would say there's nothing more competitive than mediocre.
Yeah.
There was way too many people competing at mediocre. That is not
Yeah.
a fun space to be in.
Yeah.
And I find it a great irony in life that most people would say they don't want to be average, but everyone wants to be normal.
Well, it's a very hard place, mediocrity to be in your life because you're controlled by outside factors. Whereas, like you mentioned, you have the skill level, you control what goes on in your life. Outside factors don't necessarily control you. Who becomes a president doesn't really control you either way, right? Now, this leads in because I was just watching a reel of yours probably 15 minutes before I got in here, and I love what you said here. I want to talk about it. You said, and I love this, I've literally never heard anybody say this, and I've heard everything, all right, but this was really unique. You said most people don't want to make millions of dollars. You said most people want to consume millions of dollars. Tell us the difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, our entire system, and let me create some frames, and I love that question. First, in frame, I would say it's never been easier to acquire wealth. And I don't know if I would say it's never been harder, but it is definitely getting more and more difficult to live on a working wage.
Yes.
Right? In the 60s or 70s, you could have a low skill set and probably still afford a house, a couple of kids, and a couple of cars.
Yeah.
That's not happening anymore. You do, and I love that you're teaching your kids high value skill sets. That's part of my formula for building wealth. Number one, acquire and develop high value skill sets. Now, I firmly believe all humans have the capacity to do that. They have to have the willingness to do that. But I love capitalism because I don't think there's a better system yet. And maybe at some point in our human evolution and consciousness will arrive at a better level of economic system, but it's the best of what we have.
Yeah.
There are downsides to it.
There's always
though,
downsides.
and one of them is the entire system is predicated upon constant growth, which means intentionally or unintentionally, we've created a society of consumers. In fact, now we live in a world where the factory floors of China were built, and much of China's strength has been built on the back of the American consumer.
Yeah.
As long as we continue to consume, the world continues to move. The problem is, as a result, most people are born into consumerism.
Yeah.
And they want to acquire things. We know this from
Yeah.
fear of loss, right? It's one of the Fuji factors in sales.
Yeah.
Jones effect, keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah.
Closing on impulse.
Yeah.
Well, this is all tied to consumerism.
Yeah.
And if people were really honest with themselves, they'd recognize most people are not interested in developing high value skill sets so they can be a producer in the world and create wealth. They want to consume wealth.
They want to
And my
spend it.
overall experience has been it's generally the consumers that get angry with the producers, which I think is ironic in so
Yeah.
many ways. It's not fair that you have all that. It's not fair that you get to do that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a difference between being a consumer and a producer. And I understand some people
Yeah.
listening to this would say billionaires are the biggest producers or consumers in the world,
Yeah.
but not proportionate to their wealth,
Exactly.
right? The
Yeah.
value they brought to the world. As
Yeah.
much as Jeff Bezos gets hate,
Yeah.
imagine COVID without Amazon.
Well, it'd be the same thing. Like Jeffrey Bezos, you like, oh my gosh, he bought $160 million house. Well, I don't know what his net worth is now. It fluctuates with his divorce. Let's say he's worth 160 billion. I mean, if he has 160 billion and he buys $150 million house, he's spending what, a quarter of a percent? I don't even know what it is on his house.
1% on 160, yeah.
Yeah, 1%. But let's say you're a middle class worker, right, and you're making $75,000 a year, and you buy a $300,000 house. Look what you're spending. I mean, you're spending 35-40% of what you're making every year on your house payment. Yeah. See, that's the difference. I think, is that what you're communicating there?
100%. And so that goes back to developing high value skill sets. Now we could bitch and moan about that. We could say, hey, that's not fair. I just want to exist in the world. I don't want to have to develop skill sets. Well, you can bitch and moan about that, and you can try to put somebody in office that you think is going to change our culture. But let me help you. It's not happening.
Yeah.
But we don't thrive as humans in that condition anyway.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen. So you can either reject the game or you can play the game. And maybe if you get to a certain level of the game and you master it, you can begin to change the game for the next generation.
Yeah.
But I find bitching and moaning to be very disempowering and doesn't help.
Well, it's so true. I mean, it's even with compliance. You know, as seventh level, you know, we have almost 200 employees now. So now we have compliance officers, now we have legal attorneys, like all that stuff, whereas 3 years ago there was like 18 of us, right? So we didn't have that, right? Now with growth comes more responsibility. So compliance officer comes in, hey, you guys can't say this, you can't say this, this is not compliant, this is not compliant. Now you can either complain and be like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, how are we gonna make sales or whatever. You can complain about it and go away, or you can play in that ball game and figure it out. And I think that's really true in any business or anything that you're doing in life. Is like you said, if you're middle class right now or lower middle class or even below that, how do you get out of that? How do you play in the game? You play in the game by developing skills that just other people don't have, like as much as you do. Like, you know, people always said, hey, how did you make so much money as a salesperson? I'm like, pretty simple. I just outlearned everybody else. Like, what are you talking about? Like, outlearned
everybody. The books on your shelf
like,
tell me that that's very much true.
Yeah, you know how it is. Now, I want to go into this because I want to go into your company here, Phoenix Consulting Group. Who did you start your company for and why?
Wow, that's a great question. So as an entrepreneur, and just really as a human, there's an old saying, many entrepreneurs are scratching their own itch. Well, I wanted to create a company that I wanted to work for. And when I was in my early 20s, I worked for T-Mobile. I got recruited to help them launch their retail division here in the United States. And so I opened and managed many sales locations, stores all over Orange County. And I had a blast doing it. And that fundamentally goes back to, as a whole, I would say work for an education, not a paycheck. Yeah. When I look back at some of my early jobs, whether it was a server, bartender, whether it was recruiting for Amazon, whether it was working for T-Mobile, there were skill sets I was learning that I now apply in my life, some of them to this day.
Yeah.
And so work for an education, not a paycheck. Don't chase a paycheck, chase an education.
Yeah.
But I started the company coming out of the 2008 financial crisis that wrecked our country. And there's so many of us that I've been on, had people on my podcast or been on their podcast, and we all kind of talk about that time period was defining for the decisions we were making. And I wanted to create a company where people felt like they belonged, they were part of a community. They were judged based on the size of their heart and their ambition, not their education or their pedigree. And that came out of interviewing people in 2010, and you may or may not remember this, but I literally had people sit across from me at a desk, and I'm a new owner. My business is brand new. I don't think we had incorporated at this point yet, but I had a contract with AT&T I was trying to fill.
Sure.
And the people, men and women, would sit across the desk from me, and with tears in their eyes, they would say, I'm applying everywhere. I just need a job, and nobody will hire me because they're looking for people with experience. How am I supposed to get experience if no one will hire me? Right. So I decided, for better or for worse, and some of that was luck, and some of it is hurt me to this day. I decided, hey, I'm not going to judge people based on their experience.
Mm.
I'll bring them in and I will teach them how to be a badass.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
that's really where I got my start. And we
Yeah.
built our company doing just that, coaching
Yeah.
and developing people. And our first
Yeah.
contract was doing sales and marketing for AT&T.
Sure.
So for the first 5 years of my
Yeah.
business, I was coaching, training, and
Yeah.
developing salespeople, teaching
Yeah.
them how to think, how
Yeah.
to show up, how to
Yeah.
be effective. And we
Yeah.
did multi-channel sales, meaning
Yeah.
I had door-to-door teams, I
Hmm.
had retail teams, I had
Yeah.
phone sales guys, and then
Yeah.
eventually we got into digital sales.
Hmm.
And the principles remained the same no matter what channel you were in.
Hmm.
But it really, you talked about this before we started recording. There are really three components to success, whether
Yeah.
it's in sales or in business.
Mm.
There's the skills of success,
Mm.
there's the mentality of success, and there's the character of success.
Yeah.
We generally over-index on the skills of success.
Mm.
And I think sales, the skills can be transferred to about anyone.
Yeah.
Um, there may be exceptions, and I'd love to hear your take on that. But as a whole, I've been able to, I had a tank commander who was an art history major,
Mm.
who had zero personality, and I was able
Yeah.
to teach him how to make a living wage
Yeah.
in sales. And that was to me one of my greatest like accomplishments. My
I
man, if I can
totally,
teach this guy to do it.
yeah, I totally agree.
But
A lot of people, I agree. A
yeah.
lot of people, like you'd mentioned, they think, oh, well, I'm not a natural born salesperson. Like, I don't have the gift of the gab. And I'm like, hold on, hold on. How do you mean? Because were you born out of your mother's womb with advanced questioning skills? No. Were you
No,
born? Were you born with advanced tonality skills? No. Were you born with advanced objection handling and prevention skills? No. See, those are acquired skills. Like you said,
100%.
we acquire
100%.
those skills. You know, Tiger Woods wasn't born out of his mother's womb with like advanced techniques on how to drive the ball. Like he
Well, he
put in the
changed his
time.
swing 3 times too, which is like they say that's like the crazy, that's a career killer, and I think he did it 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. So you're 100% right. Skills are learned. And this leads me into the next question. I think it sets this up very good. I talk a lot about, I want to get your take here. I always say, and I probably stole this from somebody that quoted this a long time. I'll give them credit, whoever it is. But I always say, the most successful people in life, okay, are the ones who don't learn from their mistakes. They actually learn from other people's mistakes so they don't make the same mistakes themselves. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
100%. It wasn't always a very satisfying answer for people, but I got asked a lot about who my early mentors were.
Yeah.
And I would cite people of history,
Yeah.
George Washington, Benjamin Franklin,
Really?
Julius Caesar,
Okay.
Napoleon,
Yeah.
who are some of my favorites to
Yeah.
learn from. There are many. Um,
Yeah.
but I agree with you. I think it's idealistic because I would agree in principle,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say experientially, it's an idealistic way to look at the world. It
Yeah.
seems most humans, and from a design element,
Mm.
learn through experience,
Yeah.
through pain mostly.
Sure.
And seems to be a design protocol around pain being
Yeah.
a great teacher.
Yeah.
But idealistically, if
Yeah.
you could learn from other people's
Yeah.
experiences
Yeah.
and pain, you could save yourself a lot of heartache, which is why kind of
Yeah.
a first principle in training and developing people or getting advice, period. And now I'm a full-time consultant. That's where I spend most of my time doing. It's like get advice from people who have accomplished what it is you are looking to do.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that seems so common sense, but most of us, the vast majority of people are getting advice from mom, dad, brother, friend,
Yeah.
random person on the side of the road. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy
Yeah.
that we don't vet our advice better.
Exactly. If you're getting, like, if you want to become financially independent, let's say, and you're taking advice from your uncle who's not financially wealthy himself, would you expect to gain financial wealth from somebody who's never done the thing you're wanting to do yourself? You're exactly right. You have to, if you want to learn sales, you're going to learn sales from somebody that's average or somebody that was great, like not only great, but even the best or whatever. So you always want to take advice. You want to learn business. You're going to learn it from Sebastian or maybe some other guy that has a business that's not that successful, right? You want to learn, it's like taking marriage advice from your friend who's been divorced 4 times.
100%. Which, like, unless you're trying to learn what not to do,
Yeah.
that probably isn't the right move.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, and I'm surprised, specifically on TikTok more than any other platform,
Yeah.
how much pushback I get on that. Like, I'll explain, like, if your trainer, like my very first trainer when I was in my early 20s, physical trainer,
Yeah.
was a defensive back for the Baltimore Ravens,
Yeah.
won a national title for USC, and he was
Okay.
jacked. And I literally told him, I was like, I want your body.
Yeah.
It's like, I want what you have. And he
Yeah.
started laughing. He goes, what happens to be, I'm a trainer. I'm like, perfect. When do we start? And he
Yeah.
did. He got me in really great shape because I was competing and pushing myself against
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And so then I explain, it's like, would you rather have a physical trainer that is in great shape, right, and has a lot of conviction about what they're teaching, or a trainer that's 60 pounds overweight who drinks a six pack on the weekend and has donuts on Sunday?
Doesn't
And
make any
somebody will
sense.
say, well, it doesn't mean what they're saying isn't true. And I'm like, you're 100% right. They actually could be giving you the right advice. They just don't experientially know that it is.
Yeah,
And
because
that's
they're
a
not there.
problem in and of itself
Yeah.
because there's not an energetic alignment with what they're teaching. They are teaching theory. It
Yeah.
may be right. They
Yeah.
just don't know that it's right.
Well, I agree. There's so many amateurs out there, I think, really within any type of training space that, we see them. Like we'll even have like we'll see like
19-year-old
yeah,
life coach.
we'll have one of our salespeople, and we love them, and they might leave and start their own sales training company. You're like, hold on, you're 21, you've had a year and a half of experience, you did good, but how do you have the experience and wisdom to really go out and train every single industry and understand sales when you have such limited experience? Like you're almost doing a disservice against your clients that you get because you don't really have the knowledge yet. You know what I'm saying? Like spend 10 years plus, prove your track record, become the best in your industry, then go out and do that because people will actually respect you because you know what you're doing.
But I literally, to that point, Jeremy, and it's a great one. I had people 2015, 2016 reaching out to me saying, hey, we'll pay you to start recording your content. We'll start building your brand online. And for a couple of reasons, I was like, no. One, I was too buried in building my company, which I
Yeah,
did miss out on some opportunities. I should have been probably recording that entire process.
sure.
Um, but what I'm teaching now is something I've been practicing for 20 years, and I only
Yeah,
started during COVID. The end of COVID is when I really started getting aggressive and committing to a digital personal brand,
yeah,
and teaching it to the public. Most of what
yeah,
I teach has been in front of my teams all over the country for the
yeah.
last 10 years.
Yeah, it's so true because I look at myself. I had an 18-year sales career before I retired.
And you
Uh,
crushed it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
You're one of the
it
best.
did somewhat well. And I'm like,
Yeah.
when I started seventh level, I still was like, I don't know, like I don't know if I have what it takes to train every industry. There's always that little doubt there. Even after all those years of experience at the level that I was at, I still was like, I'm not sure, and I felt uncomfortable with clients. It takes you a while to get in there, but that's after almost 2 decades of experience. I
And
couldn't
to
imagine
me,
doing that a year
that's a
after.
pretty
Yeah,
healthy indicator
yeah,
when you still have a level of humility 20 years in, 7, 8 digit earner, a master at sales, and you're still like, there's more for me to learn.
I'm
Like
still
that,
learning, man.
I call that red belt mentality,
Yeah,
right? Where it's like no matter how good, I always am very concerned, and I get marketing
mm,
but I'm very concerned when people want to call them experts or masters or anything like that. I generally stay away from titles, period. But
yeah,
specifically, if you want to claim that, and if other people want to tell you that, great. There's an old saying, when you're good, you'll tell everyone. When you're great, they'll tell you.
yeah.
Um, but I love that humility, and I think it shows in your work. Like I told you
You're
before,
too
you're
man.
one of a very short list of people that I'll send people over for to watch your content for sales training because I think you teach in principle and it's clear. It's clear by the way you're speaking,
Mm,
what you're speaking on, you experientially understand. There's a
yeah,
confidence that can't be faked,
yeah.
and it's not theoretical knowledge.
You can, yeah, and when I watch your stuff as well, because I've been following you for a while, you can tell you can tell you know what you're talking about because when I watch content, like you watch content for a while, you're like, okay, they're saying the same thing over and over, like they don't have that much experience, they don't know what they're doing. It just sounds like they read a book and they're repeating back what they learned on the book, but they don't know how to do it because they've never done the thing they want to do. So I think that's important. If everybody listening here, like, look, if you want to do something, great. Spend the time to learn how to do it and go out and prove it in the market, and people will respect you because you're exactly right. We at our company we always make fun of the sales trainers. They're like, we're the #1 sales training company in the world, and we're like, who told you that, grandma? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you'll never catch us saying that. Like, that's up to society. That's up to our clients or our society to say
100%.
that. It's like Tom Brady being like, I'm the number one quarterback in the world. You know, he doesn't say that. You're
If you're the
exactly
GOAT, you don't need to say it.
exactly, and that's what I love your content about it, because you've actually done the thing. You're training people. Now I want to ask a couple more questions here. I was reading on your website, one of your core principles in your business strategy is empathy, like empathizing with your customers. How
Yeah.
did you develop that approach, and how did it contribute to you getting major clients like AT&T and Amazon? Those are big boys.
So just in principle, how we trained our guys is treat everyone like they're your grandma,
I love that. Yeah.
right? Like, how would you feel about closing your grandma right now? Is this going to be a benefit to them?
Yeah.
And we do B2B sales, we've done residential sales, we've done consumer sales. So uh, the principle there is be part of the solution, not the problem. We're not
Yeah.
trying to shill a product on somebody.
Yeah.
We're trying to create a solution for our customers.
Yeah.
Now, AT&T has a brilliant marketing team. We sell products that everybody uses in locations that everybody goes.
Yeah.
And so it certainly makes it a lot easier. Our law of averages is pretty high simply
Sure.
because we're selling products that aren't niche.
Yeah.
But the goal is to connect with your customer and figure out what they need.
Yeah.
So it isn't about you.
Yeah.
As I say all the time in my business, like we get to our goals by helping other people get to their goals.
I love that.
And so when you show up in a sales environment like that
Mm.
and people trust you because they know you're going to do what's right by them, it gets
Yeah.
really easy. And so I really
Yeah.
teach a consultative sale.
Yeah.
And no to me, I'm okay with no as long as it's set out of understanding, not ignorance.
Yeah.
So I don't find no's offensive. You're just
Mm.
not my customer,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Maybe it didn't fit
I
into
just
what
want to
you're
make
looking
sure if
for.
you're saying no, you're saying
Yeah.
no out of complete understanding, not ignorance. And that's on
Yeah.
me to communicate effectively
Yeah.
so you know exactly what you're saying no to.
Yeah. It's so true. I think you brought up a good point. I was just up on stage 3 hours ago at an event here in Phoenix, and we were talking about problem finding, and we were talking about, when you first start talking to your prospects, 99.9% of them don't even know what their real problems are, right? They don't know. They might have an idea of what they
100%.
think they need, but they don't really know, right? So, or they don't know how bad the problem is, right? Or maybe they don't understand the consequences of what happens if they don't do anything about solving the problem. So instead of blaming our prospects, I like what you said, instead of blaming them like, oh, our leads are bad, they're broke, mentality, they're fear-based. Well, yeah, no SHIT, Sherlock. Everybody has a fear of change. That's human nature 101. Your job is to help them overcome that fear of change so they
Yes.
can get what they really want, right? So I love the way you define that as you're coming in to the market and you're solving problems to get people or companies where they really want to be. They might not know where they want to be. You can't tell them where they should be. Your questioning ability, like you mentioned, how you use your tone, gets them to feel internal tension that maybe they have much bigger problems they originally thought they had. That's a whole nother
Right.
subject.
Right.
Okay.
And that is for me, my first customer is my people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell them the guys that go through our business management training programs,
Yeah.
like people come into our business for a reason, a season for life. I don't always know which one it is. My goal is to leave them better than I found them.
Yeah.
But I will say this, sales is one of the most high value transferable skill sets.
Tell us why you feel that way.
It's the ability to effectively communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at all the problems in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whether it be within a marriage, the leading cause of divorce is ultimately a lack of communication or unreconcilable differences that are generally around inability to communicate effectively.
Yep.
So much of our political world right now is ineffective communication as a whole. This is probably contentious to some, but I would say the people on the left and the people on the right want the same things. They have a different value system or approach on how to get there.
Right.
But because both sides are generally horrific at communicating, they're just yelling at each other.
I know, they're attacking each other's character, and I'm like, hey,
Yeah, and
just
which, by the
tell us-
way,
yeah.
ad hominem, that's one of the great fallacies of reasoning. I can always
Yeah.
tell where somebody is intellectually by whether
Yeah.
or not they attack the issue or the person.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where we'd rather attack people than the issues that they're bringing up. And that just tells me where we're at. So
Yeah, can you
being
imagine-
able to sell is
Yeah.
simply the ability to communicate. By the way, if you want to be a leader, leadership is sales. It's influence,
Yeah.
right? It's to be able to convey a message in an effective manner
Yeah.
that people are compelled to take action on. It's the transfer of energy. So
Yeah.
in my opinion, for the average person, it is one of the highest valuable transferable skill sets. And if you get really good at it,
Yeah.
it will serve you for the rest of your life, whether you're in
Yeah.
a traditional sales role or just in a
Yeah.
leadership or management role.
Yeah. No, you're so true. You're going back to the political game because I have friends on both sides of the aisle. I'm just a registered independent. I'm like the guy in the middle. Like, hey, I agree with you
Tell
here.
people
I
I
agree with you
bleed
here.
purple.
Yeah, I'm kind of right in the middle. I voted both ways, all the time, Democrat, Republican. But you're absolutely right because they start attacking each other, even attacking the issues. I'm like, well, if you just relanguaged it and you started talking about the issues, like, oh, let's say I'm a Republican now and I'm talking and I'm running against President Obama. I'm just throwing something out. It could be either way. And let's say that the healthcare premiums shot up, whatever it was, a couple 100%. Now instead of attacking him like, oh, he's evil, he's horrible, because that's going to alienate half the country, because they're just going to get defensive, right? Whether he was wrong or right, you might come in and say, you know what, I really appreciate, President Obama with the ideas that he had about,
What he was trying to
healthcare,
accomplish.
what he was trying to accomplish, and I don't fault him at all for the insurance, rates going up a couple 100%. Maybe it just was his team just didn't know how to deliver what his vision was. He just didn't have the right team in place to get that done. So I love President Obama's idea, and what I would do a little bit differently with my team is this. And now you're getting people like on your side that already believe in you to believe you even more, and all the other people, like you might not get the 20% that are just always going to go that way, but you got all those people in the middle, like that 30 to
Which is by
50%.
far the biggest group. We just
Yeah,
forgotten about it because the loudest voices make us think that they're the majority and they're not. They're almost
yeah,
always the minority. The
exactly.
middle is the middle of our country is still pretty moderate.
It's almost half the country. Yeah, it's like probably
Yeah. So
45%.
it just reach out to people
Yeah.
who haven't lost their minds yet.
Yeah, so you attract all those other people where even if maybe some of them don't even vote for you, but they don't attack you. They have respect for you. And that's
100%.
where our politicians on both sides probably need to get some training on. Just throwing it on the loop there. All right, so I want to talk about your vision of where you're going. You got a great company. You've helped thousands of people. Where are you going? Where's your company going? Where are you going?
So for me, this is a part of a much bigger plan, but mobilize, equip, and train. So I said back in 2010, I was scratching my own itch.
Mm.
I'm not a big fan of academia in its current state.
Yeah.
I don't think, you hire people just like I do, and you probably experience this. It's not preparing people for the real world.
No.
And so my goal
It's a
is
business.
to create educational platforms and opportunities for people to get trained
Yeah.
in trades that are high value
I like
and
that.
skill sets that will pay them for the rest of their life, and pay them to do it
Yeah.
so that they grow and learn to,
Yeah.
to change a generation of people by being part of the solution, not just bitching about the problem. I think the easiest way to change models is to prove out a new one.
I
Instead of
totally
bitching about it, create a new one. So
Yeah.
that's really our goal with Phoenix.
Okay.
We have almost 40 locations around the country now. We're training people all over the nation.
Okay.
And again, most of my training, I love talking to sales with you, but sales is just a portion of what we teach.
Yeah.
I think it's an important skill set, but
Yeah.
most of us went to school for 8 to 16 years, right? Somewhere in that. And did not get effective training on how to have great relationships. We didn't get effective training on how to build wealth or even how to manage a
How to
checkbook,
budget a checking.
or even know what a checkbook is in this day and age. And most of us didn't know how to take care of our health.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you get into your mid-20s, you're in debt, you're alone, and you're getting overweight and you feel like you're getting old. And I see this all the time. And I'm thinking to myself, how is it for all the things that we spend time learning in school, we didn't learn, in my opinion, the 3 most important things?
Yeah.
Mental health issues are a bigger problem in our country than they've been since we're recording this. People are unhappy, they're overweight. You are 3 times more likely to die of obesity than starvation right now. And what is going on?
Yeah.
We're alone, sick, and unhealthy. And so my passion is to teach around the big 3. How do we get people healthy mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, but all of them, not just money. Now, I like starting with sales and money because money buys you resources or gains you resources that you can apply to those other areas.
Right.
And so big part of my value structure is freedom.
Yeah.
It's hard to be free
With
in
no
a
money.
first world country if you are not financially free. So I definitely spend time talking about money and sales as an element of that.
Yeah.
But to me, it's more holistic than that. I don't think,
Totally agree.
in my opinion, and everyone has a definition of success, but for me, success isn't just about acquiring a bunch of wealth, meaning money.
Yeah.
more assets.
Yeah, it's
I
so
know
true.
lots of people. I have two that I coach right now that are worth $500 million,
Yeah.
and both of them are fucking miserable.
Yeah, well,
They're
it's like,
both divorced, they're unhappy, they're alone, and they have
yeah,
all the money in the world, but they can't figure out why they don't have any energy, why they don't have a desire to get up, and why they can't maintain a relationship.
yeah.
And so that
But
just reminds me, it's
yeah,
like money gives you resources to solve your problems, but
yeah.
in and of itself, its only value is in what it represents to you.
100%. It doesn't buy you happiness, just like you said. It just, like you said, it gives you more options or resources in life to help more people, do things, travel, see things that
Or
whatever you
or
want to do.
if you're financially wealthy, you can hire the best therapists in the world to get your heart and mind straight, or you're the
Exactly.
best coaches, or
Yeah.
if you have a disease or you're unhealthy, you
The
can
best
hire the
healthcare.
best of the best to help
Yeah.
you recover. So it
So true.
definitely gives you options. And so I would never downplay the importance of money.
Yeah.
It's just it's in what it can do for you, not in and of itself.
I
And
love
I
that.
got guys I know that are obsessed with just making money. Their
Yeah.
scorecard is just stacking cash. Say,
Yeah.
how much can I acquire? And
Yeah.
I don't really know how to relate to that
Yeah.
other than just based on where their soul level consciousness is at.
Yeah.
That seems to be the
Yeah.
game they're in. And that's cool. It's like
Yeah.
people who play video games that want to acquire every gold coin in the game. Like,
Right.
okay,
Well, it's true. When you leave this life, when we depart this life,
it doesn't come with
you
you.
don't take any of that money with you. The bank accounts stay, cars stay, houses stay. What you do take is your love for your family,
Yes.
the memories you had with them, the experiences you
Experiences,
had with
your
your family,
impact.
friends, and the knowledge you gained. Those are the only two
Beautiful.
things you take. You don't take your clothes, none of that. So that's a great conclusion. Loved having you on. Like I said, when you come to Scottsdale, I want to have you in here in studio
Let's
in
do
the
it.
office here. Definitely when I
I'll
come
be
out to
there in
Orange County.
October, so I'll make sure my team reaches out to your team. We'll
Okay,
get her set up.
perfect. We'll get it set up. And then last thing, where can everybody learn more about what you do? Where do they go?
So, at Sabastian Enges on all platforms. I think we're on all of them now.
Mm-hmm.
My team manages most of them
Yeah.
except for IG. I check my DMs on IG twice a day to this day. I just want to connect
Oh,
with my
wow.
followers, but that's the only place that you'll get an actual response
Okay.
from me. If it's on the other platforms, it's one of my team members.
Mm.
And then Quantum Academy is our group coaching
Okay.
program. We have our live event this weekend. I'm really excited about. We're taking a small group, I think 20, 25 people, and we're going to be going through our whole blueprint.
Yeah.
And so you can go to Quantum Academy Live if you want to
Yeah.
check that out, or just reach out to me on social media.
I love that. Well done. Also, so we're gonna post your IG handle here in the show notes. Make sure you follow this guy. Okay, like if I bring somebody on the show, all of you know that they're legit. I don't bring people that are amateurs on the show because I know all of you listening, watching, you are a high level person. You're a smart person. You're a professional who just wants to improve, and you need to learn from people who've already done the thing that you want to do. That's how you avoid all the failure going on. You might fail some. You're gonna get there far faster if you're learning from people what not to do and what to do. So make sure you follow Sebastian. Also, you're always welcome to get our best-selling book from barnesandnoble.com. You go to Barnes & Noble, any bookstore, Wall Street Journal bestseller, New Model of Selling. And also, a lot of you ask us, where do we learn more about what you guys do, Jeremy? Start with, you just go through some of our free content before you get into our training. Just go to salesrevolution.group, salesrevolution.group. There's about 140,000 plus sales professionals in there, and just wanting to help you. So you can get in there for free, start learning some stuff, then you can always reach out to us if you want more advanced training. Sebastian, it was a pleasure meeting you. Heard a lot about you. So, and it's all
Likewise,
true.
my friend.
It's all
Look forward
true.
to continuing the conversation.
All right. Stay out of trouble, everybody. Thanks for being on, and we'll see you next episode.